For both Arizona and Arizona State, this is one of the bigger Territorial Cup games in recent memory. What does it mean for both teams? What does this mean for Brent Brennan?
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. The show's brought to you today by Gametime. Again, create an account and get Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase when you download the Gametime app. All right, Arizona ASU is here. This is obviously going to be a big game for both sides. Both sides here, we got a lot going on here. All right, now, the first thing, though, that we got to look at here is that from an Arizona perspective, this has been a wildly disappointing season. Going into this, they were preseason ranked number 21. You returned to the National Freshman of the Year in Noah Fafita. You returned the best wide receiver in college football. Heck, maybe the best player in college football in Teteroa McMillan. You returned three really, really good offensive linemen. You had some talented guys at the tight end spot. And then on defense, you returned six starters. Now, again, you lost a lot of guys in the trenches, but still, it has been a wildly disappointing season. And I think people kind of understand that there was going to be some bumps and bruises when it came to the defensive side of the football, but I don't think that people thought that maybe the defense would be better than the offense, and I think that's what really is kind of throwing a lot of people off here, and honestly, I'm one of them. I was wrong. But when it comes to the Arizona offense, it's, there's no other way to put it. It's been a disaster this season, and I think the thing that really kind of bothers so many people is there doesn't ever seem like there was actually a real identity, a real thought forged into how this offense was going to be. They're not really. That's certainly not a hurry up. It's not a quick strike type offense. It's kind of slow. It's kind of boring. Throughout the season. A lot of delayed handoffs. A lot of plays where Noah's running back 4 yards and then running back 17 more yards. It just really hasn't made any sense at all, and I think that's been the problem, is that there really has been no identity to this team, and watching that, I think that's something that's just kind of inexcusable, and that falls right on Brent Brennan. Now, Dino Babers had not called a play since the George W. Bush administration, and it showed. He was a disaster, and when you watched him in pressers, he was kind of combative. All the vibes just felt off. And again, you saw what happened. You put in Matt Atkins, who I actually think Matt Atkins has some real potential in the coaching industry, but that's a ways off. You could tell, this offense is just totally broken at this point. There's no other way to put it. And I think if you're an Arizona fan, you're even more worried because, again, you generally, as I always say, you generally don't get better by losing T-Mac. You generally don't get better by losing Big Jonah. Players like that, Josh Baker at that center position. And then also, up front, there's obviously some other concerns as well. But it's been a disaster of a season. Conversely, you look up at ASU, and it has been the exact opposite. A lot of people picked them to finish last in the conference. They're probably the best team in the conference. And one thing that I have been right on is Kenny Dillingham. Kenny Dillingham is an absolute stud. You watch him. I had him on another show in a different network, and he was just amazing. He was, if you asked what you needed the identity to be, he was very upfront about that, talking about, what he wanted his team to be. Not only what he wanted his team to be, but also what he expects from himself. And he said multiple times, my job is to advocate for my players. And he means it. Every single presser is almost an infomercial for pay my guys. They are underpaid. They deserve to be paid better. And not only that, it's a situation where you're kind of like, All right. Well, you get it. You can get why kids want to really go through want to run through a wall for him, and it just makes a lot of sense. He's that dude. He's that, and he has knocked the ball out of the park on the transfer portal. That is he's been absolutely fantastic on that. And you look at that. You look at that entire team. He clearly had a plan, and his plan has worked. His plan has worked perfectly. And that plan was that he was going to get players in there that really value the game of football, and you've got that. I mean, just look at that quarterback position. Sam Levitt's a good quarterback. This is somebody that you got from Michigan State. Sam Levitt's going to be their starter for the next couple of years. Dilly said before the year, and Dilly was wrong on this one, but Dilly said he had two Sunday quarterbacks. That is silly. Those are not two Sunday quarterbacks there, but he might have one in Sam Levitt. He has been very good. Then you got Cam Skatteboo in the transfer portal at first. Skatteboo is emblematic of that entire team. He is a workhorse. Not only is he a workhorse, he makes every single big play for them. And that he's somebody that I don't know that you can necessarily really quantify just how important he's been for that team. And it's not just running the ball, it's also from a receiving perspective. He made I can't remember what game it was, but I think it was a fourth down, and he made a huge play. And it was just, again, he's a next level player. I think he's going to play in the NFL, and I'd be very curious as to I'd be very curious to see where he ranks amongst everything when it comes to, all-time ASU running backs. But no, he's absolutely fantastic, though. And when you watch him, you can just see that, that's exactly, I think, the kind of running back that Dilly wants. Then another one, Jordan Tyson. I mean, Arizona gets Montana Lamonius Craig from Colorado. Arizona State gets Jordan Tyson. I think that's kind of the difference. Jordan Tyson is, outside of T-Mac, this is probably the best. This is probably the best wide receiver, the second best wide receiver in the Big 12. He's a monster, and he's getting better and better. You watch these ASU games, and you just see him, and it's like, all right, well, you know that he's coming. And not only is he coming, he's also the guy that, if they get him back for next year, he's probably going to be on a lot of All-American lists. A really, really good football player. And then you look on the defensive side of the football as well, and it's a ton of different guys as well. You got a Clayton Smith. You've got a Keyshawn Elliott. You've got an Alford. I mean, and these are difference makers. These aren't players that are just there. These are players that. I think that, you just look at it and you're like, all right, well, and they're not going anywhere. That's the other problem. A lot of these guys that he brought in are young. And now I think a couple things to keep in mind too is, what is Dilly really looking for? And I asked this of him. And I said, what do you look for? Because your hit rate is out the roof. And then he goes, I'm looking for good dudes that are football players. And he made an interesting point. He goes, there's guys that get a lot of interceptions, but if you look at the film, sometimes those passes are thrown right to them. I mean, that's a lot different than somebody that is seeking out the interception. That is a reason that interception is being forced. That's the kind of guys he's looking for. He said, I love team captains, people that are just about football. And that, I mean, you can see it. When you look at ASU, that's a team where you got a lot of guys that look like they are just about football. And Kenny Dillingham is about that. You've got to have that. And, when Brent, and I think there's a lot that Brent Brennan could learn from that. And we're going to talk about that here in just a second. But first, game time. All right, now you might want to go to the Territorial Cup. You might want to go to a bunch of different things, but you don't know where to get tickets. Download the Gametime app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. All right, here's the great deal with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime. What time is it? Gametime. Ooh. All right. And the other thing too with Gametime is I can tell you a lot of different people that have used Gametime, and it works. It is fun. Check it out. Gametime. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. Okay, now let's talk a little bit then about what Brent Brennan can learn. First of all, Brent Brennan, I think the first thing that you can learn from Kenny Dillingham is the importance of being out in the community. What Brent Brennan really erred on, in my opinion, was that he looked at this job and I think he just thought, well, I can just win games and, that's really all that'll matter. So he basically kind of isolated himself from the community. Now, he's doing interviews now. I mean, that's better than nothing, but you also kind of wonder if it's a little too late at this point because there was really none of that before. Also, you look at Kenny Dillingham. And the one thing about Kenny Dillingham is that there is 1,000% there is a vision there for what Kenny Dillingham wants to do. He has a vision, and he also said, and honestly, I'm not a paranoid guy. I think that we have the. He's like, we have the same plays. You can look at a play, you can look at our games, you can look at our tapes and be like, yeah, we run power and we go 4 verts, but if they're soft, we're going to run comebacks. He said there's not a lot of trickery to this. And he goes, the other thing too is you also have to think that it's up to me to be able to put the best product out on the field. And I think that's where Brent Brennan comes in. I think Brent Brennan has gotten too caught up in reporting injuries, things like that don't really matter at the end of the day. Kenny Dillingham was like, I want people to be out there seeing our guys. I want them to be out there, working their butts off. And I want them to be able to see that a product. That is something that I just don't think that Brent Brennan has really gotten. I still don't think that he quite gets. When it comes to Kenny though, and then just advocating for his players, you've got to have some kind of niche. You've got to have something where you're like, all right, this is what I am going to be. This is what I'm going to do, etc., etc., etc. And right, he just doesn't really have that. You could look at a lot of it. You could also look at the passion, and that is something that I think with Dillingham, people want to run through a brick wall for him. And then when it comes to what he wants to do, scouting. Now I will say this: I'm going to give Brennan a little bit of a pass then on the portal. Although I will say that they didn't really bring in anybody outside of a couple San Jose State guys, which is what it is. But when it comes to the players he did bring in, it was basically a big big whiffs. Players haven't been good enough. Guys you brought in on the D line, not good. Players you brought in the linebacker, not good. Players you brought in, especially on the offensive line, definitely not good. That's an issue. And there's been a ton of injuries. It just, it is what it is. So what does this game mean? Any athletic director that is basing their decision based off one game is probably in the wrong field, in my opinion. This is something that you've got to look at the totality of somebody's work. And I'm not saying whether to fire or to keep somebody when it comes to that. I'm just saying if you're saying, okay, well, if they win this game, they're back. If they don't, then that to me is just incredibly, incredibly short-sighted. And I can't imagine that Desiree Reed-Francois is of that opinion. So there is obviously that. Then when it comes to what Brennan need, if he could win a game, if he could win against ASU, that would obviously be a nice little flex for him in the community. Because again, ASU's got a lot of goals here. They got college football playoffs right in their crosshairs. They got the Big 12 championship right in their crosshairs. They got a lot of different things right in their crosshairs, and if Arizona could trip them up, That would be big. I think it would also be something where you'd be like, all right, you know, maybe there's something to build on going into next year. Now, I would expect Big Jonah to play. I would expect T-Mac to play. I'd expect all those guys to play. And we'll find out. And like I said, too, and I think this is the thing that frustrates so many people, is that there's no reason that this team should be this bad. Again, there's still, now again, the injuries have definitely accumulated, but there's still a lot of talent on this football team. And it just shouldn't be this bad. I'm gonna keep going back to that point, especially on the offensive side of the football. So, this would be something. I think that it's the last game of the season. I think you'd really like to see T-Mac go off one last time. Again, T-Mac is the best wide receiver in the country, and it's not even close. If somebody else thinks that T-Mac is the best wide receiver or isn't the best wide receiver in the country, they are crazy. And not only are they crazy, they don't know anything, so do not listen to them. He's just a monster. I would try to target him early and often. Not only would I try to target him early and often, like I said, I would just try to get him the ball as many times as possible because he is just totally different. He's totally different than anybody else. Not only is he totally different than anybody else, he's also the player that you watch him and you're like, there's just really no matchup for him. And not only is there really no matchup for him, you can't really practice going against a T-Mac because nobody else has a T-Mac. That's where it's different. I'd like to see Kean Burnett if he could get in the game, if he could be healthy. I'd like to see him in there. I'd like to see him in there as well. But that the T-Mac to me is the one. And then after that, you got to give Chris Hunter is emerging, and Chris Hunter is fascinating at that other wide receiver position. He's somebody that I think he's somebody that you look at and you're like, there's something to work with there. He's big, he's fast, he's physical, and he can catch. That's the thing that I think is interesting. He's I think the one that's coming closest to emerging as the um, he's the one that is emerging. He's the one that's emerging now as the as that player that I think people were hoping that maybe a Jeremiah Patterson would be, but he's shown some really nice ability. It'll be interesting to see if he can keep that up. But I am excited to see the possibilities of what he can do. But those are the guys right there. Jeremiah Patterson, that was another whiff. Everything is 20 or is one catch for 4 yards. I think he's got 20 on the season for like 160 yards. I mean, he's just not been that dude. Chris Hunter though is fascinating. He has been able to give T-Mac a little bit of a rest, and I think it's going to be exciting to see what he can do going forward in the future. If Arizona can obviously hold on to him, Quali Conley's been all right at running back. He's not bad. Obviously, Arizona lost a huge weapon in Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. I think that the offense was going to be based around him, but when it comes to Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, he's not. Probably had already played his time. And I don't know that, you get people out here like David Kelly that are saying, well, just go ahead and play him. Well, no. If the NCAA has told you that play him at your own risk, guess what you don't do? You don't play him at your own risk. That's not difficult. This is not something that is difficult to ascertain whatsoever. But I think you'd like to be able to see, Quali Conley have a nice game. Now, on the defensive side of the football, that's where it's going to be really interesting for me because Arizona now is at a spot where obviously it's the walking wounded, and ASU's physical. I mean, you watch Scattaboo, and Scattaboo is a horse. I mean, he is a difficult one to bring down. Not only is he a difficult guy to bring down, he's also somebody that you watch him and you're like, all right, he just continues to get better and better and better. And, like I said, just a really, really good football player. And Arizona's got an undersized defense, so I would expect him to eat. I think Dwayne Aquina has done a nice job with this defense overall. I mean, I get some people that are like, well, what do you mean he's done a good job? Because they're giving up. First of all, there's not a ton of talent on this defense. Second of all, when it was healthy outside of that New Mexico game, it was actually not bad. So there is that. And then all the players that where he really counted on have been out. I mean, Jacob Manu, Trey Stukes, Gunnar Maldonado. And again, it's not like it's on the offensive side where you got multiple first round picks, you got an All American at quarterback, things like that. So I'm going to definitely give him a pass on that. I think he's done a good job, but I do worry about this game though because ASU's got one really, really good wide receiver. That'll be an interesting matchup for Tacario Davis, certainly. And then they've also got, obviously, that running game. Now, defensively, we're going to talk about how all of that stacks up here in just a second. But first, FanDuel, check it out. FanDuel. All right, all kinds of good stuff going on right now at FanDuel. You can put down $5. $5 if you're a new customer, and you can get $150 in free plays. That simple, that easy. Just think about it that way. $5 for $150. Again, if you're a new customer, there's no reason not to do it. So, and again, you got college football here. You got bowl games coming up. Not only do you have bowl games coming up, you've also got the NBA. You got college basketball. You've got a lot of different things. So check it out. FanDuel, your money's good. And the cool thing about FanDuel as well is that you also know that if you go ahead and you win, like I said, it's going to be fun. Make some more money. Make some more money as well. And see where everything plays out there. But either way, check it out. FanDuel, again, another one of these ones that you are going to thank me later. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about where we are now when it comes to the Arizona offense. Like I said, ASU's got an opportunistic defense, and it's been pretty healthy. I mean, I know that you missed Prince Dorbaugh for a good percentage of the season, but overall, it's a good D-line. I said it from day one, Jacob Kongaika. I like Jacob Kongaika. I disagreed with a lot of people like Shear. I thought Jacob Kongaika was a clear loss, and he's a good player for them. Again, Clayton Smith, you got a bunch of different dudes. And then a linebacker, you got Elliott. You've got guys in the secondary. It's going to be a tough one for Arizona, especially that offensive line that, let's just be honest here, has not been good. And I don't know that there's really a strategy for it that makes a lot of sense either. So that obviously is going to be a little bit of an issue. We're going to see though how this one does play out though. But I just don't know that Arizona is going to be scoring a ton of points in this game. Maybe they are. I certainly hope they are. But I also don't look at this and say that this is going to be a dynamic situation at all. I think this is going to be something where you're kind of like, all right, well, we're kind of at the stage now where you just know that this team offensively is just going to struggle going into the postseason, and that's just kind of the way it's at. So we will find that one out. I think the other thing too, though, that I'd like to just see is you'd like to see T-Mac go out on a big note. You'd like to see T-Mac just really destroy some things and remind everybody what exactly he can do. He's, again, T-Mac's a stud. This is players like him don't come around here very often. And when I say they don't come around here very often, they don't come around here. They don't come around here at all. But I don't know that Arizona's going to necessarily score a lot of points in this game. I think they're going to have to try to force some turnovers. If they can force some turnovers, then I think they're maybe in a little bit of a better spot. But overall, this is going to be a difficult spot for Arizona. And again, ASU's got a lot riding on it. But I will say this though. The one thing I will say is that when it comes to this, you also know that Arizona has there have been bigger shockers in this in this series than if Arizona were to win this game, and it wouldn't shock me at all if that were to be the case. Actually, I mean the point spreads half. Go to FanDuel again and check it out. FanDuel, and you will, like I said, you're gonna thank me later on that one, but I do think the one thing about it too is that you also know that this is going to be a difficult game, and I think if you're Arizona, you're also worried about exactly who exactly is going to be playing out here, what that role is going to be. So we will find that one out. As far as a prediction, though, I am going to, and again, I'm going to probably look stupid on this, but I am going to back the A on this one. I know. Beat me up in the comments afterwards. I do not care. I am going to go Arizona 24, ASU 23. Again, probably going to be wrong on this one, but I am going to have fun with it. I am going to back the A here at the end. That is going to be something that I am going to have a good time with. But as always, though, we're also going to be back with you on the post-game show tomorrow. Arizona Davidson. But as always, very much appreciate you all making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. I'm your host, Mike Luke. Bear down, back the A, and we will be back with you tomorrow.